Welcome to the G-Spot.
Five, four, three, two, one.
Hello everybody and welcome to Dynamic GT League's G-Spot, where we have a look at how much Gary's fucked up this week.
Quite a lot.
Okay, so the G-Spot. What's the G-Spot, Ray?
That's where the wonderful, weird things and funny things that happen within the racing, plus any reports that have been sent in before we do the G-Spot, and it's also for educational purposes.
Yeah. Talking of those educational purposes, I'd be interested to know what people thought of the corner analysis we did on the last G-Spot at Laguna Seca up at the Corkscrew. Because I know no one's mentioned to me what they thought of it, so it'd be nice to know what people did think of it. So feel free to let us know. Now, the last G-Spot was very, very long, so I'm going to try and keep this one pretty short if we can. So I think we just crack on, Red.
Okay.
I'm going to go on to the first one. Do the introduction, and but then we'll stop before we get to the footage, and people will see why. Okay, countdown. I don't know why I'm doing countdown to play, because I usually go, so let's get ready in 3, 2, 1, let's go. G1 Race 8 report from SRI. Was it me or not me? That is the question. So, SRI, Raymond, what's this report you've put in?
I would like to see if I did anything wrong on the formation lap as I got called out on it.
Oh, what did you get called?
Well, I got called out that it was my fault.
Oh, I thought you got called Scottish and on the tenants.
Nah, I get called a fucking idiot.
I think you got called out for being on the tenants. Okay. Right.
That was after the idiot.
Alright, okay. Okay, well, this is where I'm going to introduce a new feature, Ray. Because it's been reported and you're involved, we're not looking at it.
Shh. Okay.
Yeah. We're going to do nothing. Basically, what I'm going to do is the stewards will look at this without SRI. They will come up with their decision, their input, and then I will add that into this G-Spot. Now,
fair enough.
Yeah, I'm doing it for a couple of reasons. One, it'd be the right thing to do. That should be enough, but I said a number, so now I'm going to have to go to 2. I mean, other people don't really get the chance to voice their own opinions on something that involves themselves, so I don't think it would be necessarily right. I mean, I know I've talked about me being involved in stuff, but it's not when it's been reported, so it's slightly different. But this, it's something that you've reported, so you can't be involved. And rather than me sort of bambling through it now and you hearing what I may or may not think, I'll wait until the stewards have done their thing. So I think we move on to the next one.
Yeah, when the stewards do the thing, I will announce that I'm in the room, but I will be silent, and I'll be silent.
Silent! I'll kill you!
Yeah. As we do, because those other reports, we're all in the same room and ready to go for the next report. So I will show the drivers how we do it when a steward admin is reported.
Yep. Right. Okay. So insert stewards thingamajig, name of his sex tape. So here we go with the stewards. Report race 8 formation lap from SRI. Would like to see if I did anything wrong on the formation lap, as I got called out on it and called a fucking idiot. Okay, so the steward's view. This appears to be in reference to a comment made in jest to SRI by the driver behind at the end of the formation lap, because SRI did not keep up with the cars in front. The steward's verdict: SRI appeared to be caught out by the drivers in front accelerating in a lower gear, while SRI was saving fuel in 6th gear, but don't believe he did anything wrong. Now, we are going to have a look at this in a moment, but I also want to add as well that what we'll see in the footage is that the car behind SRI also had a rather large gap to SRI, so any comment of being an idiot would also apply to themselves. So let's have a look at the footage, shall we? So yeah, let's go. Okay, so look at the formation lap then from SRI, and you'll see that it's in 6th gear. Absolutely nothing wrong with this, closing in on the cars ahead. But what we'll see over the course of this lap as Rich Blues comes flying past on pause, which does create a bit of a distraction here. It spreads the field out a little bit as people are concentrating more on what Rich is doing rather than what's going on in their own cars. But the gap will come down a little later. So SRI at the moment, using 6th gear, everything's fine here. Because the speed is sort of a constant-ish speed, but as we get through the next few corners, the gap's going to open up, and that's because SRI is holding 6th gear, and the cars ahead are using 2nd and 3rd gear. So after this next corner, you'll see SRI trying to accelerate out of this corner in 6th gear, whereas SGP is in 2nd or 3rd, and he just pulls away a little bit. Now, at this point, I mean, I would say, yeah, SRI needs to close the gap up, and he's realised that. He's increased his speed a little bit. I don't know if he's expecting the cars ahead to slow down a bit more, but SRI has now used his boost, and obviously he's trying not to use his boost. But the gap has got to a point where, yeah, it really needs closing. Now, at the hairpin, that gap does close in. However, the cars ahead do speed up a little quicker than SRI is perhaps expecting. He does go down to 3rd, but I think the cars ahead are using sort of 1st and 2nd at this moment. So this is where SRI is trying not to use his boost, but also trying to close the gap, but he is going a bit too slow, and that gap is opening up. Perhaps he's not aware that those cars are speeding up through this particular part of the track, and this is where the gap does really now get too big. Now, I understand SRI doesn't want to spin or anything here, but the gap now has got rather large, so I can understand somebody making a comment towards SRI of that gap's too big, because it is. So as far as has SRI done anything wrong, well, he's not really done a lot wrong, but what he has done, he has created too much of a gap between himself and the cars ahead. Now, we're going to go on board with Conrad here, because Connor is the one that commented towards SRI, and I do believe he meant it in jest, which was Ray, I know, wasn't having the best of days, but Connor also has a gap to SRI. And that gap is going to open up here. So even though SRI is perhaps going a bit slow for the cars ahead, Connor is also going way too slow for SRI. And he starts speeding up now. So at the point where any comment comes, there's a big gap between Connor and the car ahead. Now, had Connor been right up SRI's rear end, then I can more understand a serious comment of what you're doing, like, get a shift on, you're being stupid, you're being a fucking idiot, because you should be keeping the gap close. However, Connor is just as off SRI as SRI is off the cars ahead, and that's why I said earlier that any comment Connor's made is also aimed at himself, because he's got a massive gap. Now, Connor does have all the other cars behind him right up his gearbox, so yeah, it's an interesting one, and I can understand why Ray has brought the comment, brought the request forward for it to be looked into, but I do think part of that as well is I know Ray was not having the best of days, and yeah, Connor was just taking the piss as we do, and on that day, Ray was definitely not in the mood, but also he had a big gap. Name of his sex tape. Okay, that's enough waffle from me, so we'll carry on with the waffle on the G. Okay, shall we move on to the next one?
Yep.
Okay, in 3, 2, 1, let's go. G2, Race 8, report from Gary. I was happy in Spain, then I was hit. Now I'm in pain in Spain. Oh shit. Okay, so before we go
You
on
said
to...
all that shit.
I know, but it disappeared off the screen before I could remember what I wrote. Hola shit. Well, that's a bit more Mexican. Okay, now I'm going to give you the option here, Ray. Right? And it'd be interesting to see what your thought is. We can either have a quick look at this as just commentators, or we can do exactly the same thing with this report as we're going to do with the one we've just talked about. Where we
I know
don't
you wanted to make it quick, but you fucking make it very quick.
Name of
That's
my
your
sex tape. Yep. But I'm just thinking it may work better. Instead of us going, yeah, maybe, or what, I don't know. Maybe it's better we go, well, you know what, this has been reported, so rather than us bamble about it, we're letting you know it's been reported. And the steward's going to have a look at it, deal with it, and we could add that in. Or we could just have a look at who fucked up.
There's two ways I see this. One way is we look at it and we've got a kind of understanding before we go into Stuart's room.
Mm-hmm.
Or, well, you'll have an understanding if you've got the footage anyway.
True.
Or we don't look at it and I don't have an understanding of it. The two Steves don't have an understanding of it. Because I won't look at this because I'll be, after recording this, I'm off into the city live streaming, so I don't look at things until Saturday anyway.
Well, this
I
is...
watch this stuff on the G-Spot, so I don't know.
Well, let me add something. You mentioned a couple of words there. You mentioned a few words. And for those that didn't understand, subtitles may help. Although, you know how recently we've been going on about like mum calling you Gerald and all this. Right?
I'm gonna get a T-shirt made up for your mum saying, "Not Gerald."
Yeah,
it's alright.
Well, I've been thinking maybe what we should do is
your number one driver.
Fuck off. Shit, that cheeky bastard. Took me a moment to realise that you should tell you who's number one, don't worry. I know, but I keep...
The name of her sex tape.
Oh, God.
Sorry.
I do realise I'm going to have to ask her now at some point, if you was going to have the name of a sex tape, what would it be? And it'd probably, I don't know, probably be like, oh, just go to sleep, wouldn't you? Yeah, right, okay, so, Gerald, subtitles, you, funny. I keep thinking of that video where there's the Afghanis talking and he's speaking English. He goes, wait, what's that? And she goes, what? What's that on the screen? Is that a subtitle? Are you subtitling me? And then his mate starts talking. He goes, why has he not got subtitles? Well, we can understand him. Well, I speak perfect English. But yeah, so I was thinking might have to edit something together with you on that. Okay, so, right. Back to something serious. Couple of words that you mentioned was what was it? If you were to see the footage now, you would have, I can't remember the words used, but like you would have an advanced thought of what may have happened, right? Which some may think, well, that's not a bad thing. However, if it's possible that your advanced thought is actually my thought placed upon you, then that would not be fair. As in, like, obviously I've put these bits of footage together, but if I sit here, show you, tell you, if that predetermines how you may see it rather than going and seeing it for yourself, then I think it's important that that's what should be done, that you go and see it for yourself.
Go and see it for myself.
Okay. Right, so we'll let the stewards do their thing, and then we'll, once that's been sorted, we'll show you the footage on that one. And I think we'll go forward doing it this way, because I had a little think about it. It did hurt, but I think it's worth it. I think it's the better way to do it. Okay, so...
Well, the last one with bring it up, Red Bull ring, the Jimmy one. Even though we'd advanced seen it, we knew... We kind of worked it out, and then when we got to Stewards Night, we went, well, we didn't work it out, we had our comments on it, and then we couldn't predetermine who had who made it caused what and what.
Yeah.
When we went to the Stewarding Night, where we still had to look back and we had to go through things and whatnot. So
it's not like we did. It's not like we went into that stewarding and didn't bother looking at anything because we'd already decided what our outcomes may or may not have been. No, we still went through the process. Actually, didn't we record? Yeah, we recorded it, didn't we?
Yeah, we recorded it as well.
Yeah. Okay, so let's do the stewarding thing. So, report race 8, lap 5 from Gary. Can you investigate lap 5? I got hit off and lost a lot of time. Steward's view. Bob nudges Rich under braking for turn 4, which causes Rich to hit Gary, who is pushed into the gravel. The steward's verdict is a stage 2 penalty for forcing another driver off the track. It's -3 points to be deducted from Bob's championship total. Bob was close to the back of Rich and appeared to be caught out by Rich braking slightly earlier than the cars in front. However, the stewards believe Bob could have braked earlier himself, given he had cars in front of him and given the contact resulted in Gary being pushed off the track, that he should have waited for Gary. The stewards noted that there was slight contact between Bob and Rich at turn 3, but don't believe this had any impact on the incident at the corner. Okay, so we'll have a look at the footage of this, and I will sort of put in some additional information on there as well. Okay, so this is the view that we had on the race footage. We did see it on the race footage. We'll see Gary going straight on at turn 4, and we don't really from this angle get to see what happened at all, because it's all kind of happened just off camera. So what we'll do is we'll ride on board with Gary excuse me, and you'll see he's heading up to turn 4, braking about the roundabout, the bridge, gets a knock from behind. So this is as stewards, we'd ride on board with Gary, see, okay, there's been contact from behind, we'll go to the car behind, we'll see it's Rich Blues, so have a look at what's happening through turn 3. Nothing around at the moment, nothing going on. All Bob's cars appeared there, okay, so that's something to look at. Rich brakes a touch earlier than Gary for the corner, but nothing too drastic given that he's got cars ahead of him, and Rich did get a knock from behind. So we look then from Bob's view. Now we saw him appear up close next to Rich. Everything here at the moment was okay. There was a little movement there from Rich, and I'll get onto that in a moment, but there we'll see there was the little touch on the back of Rich. It's not a big hit, it's not a drastic error, but unfortunately it is a little contact which has caused Gary to go off. Okay, so this part of the situation, a little movement from Rich, however he was ahead of Bob at the time, and we are going to go back and have a look at this in slow motion. So everything here at the moment is fine. Rich is kind of coming to the left, Bob is coming to the right, you'll see an overlap of the cars, so this is all fine. It would then appear And you'll, by overlap of the cars, I mean Rich's car is ahead, so he's able to move in front. Well, what we'll see here is Bob appears to take a bit of evasive to the left, and as he's doing that, goes off the track a little bit. At this point, Bob should now really lift off and tuck in behind Rich, because he was behind already. He is off the track at that point, but what he tries to do is tuck back in behind Rich, and Rich has come all the way to the edge of the track, but Rich can at that point. He was already ahead and Bob's off the track. So this is a situation where really Bob really Bob should have backed out of this one. However, in his mind at the time, this happens so quickly, he's thinking he's been nudged off the track by Rich, which I can kind of understand, but having looked back at the replay, it's easier to see exactly what has happened. Now, Bob's car is a little wobbly, a little bit out of control here, but what the stewards are looking for now is, does Bob get his car back under control before the next phase of this incident? And the answer we came up with is yes, because he is now going straight. He's moved over to the right a bit. He's had a look up the inside. But this is the point where Rich is just about to tap the brakes a little bit, and it's absolutely understandable because he's got cars ahead of him. Bob, though, isn't on the brakes yet, which if Bob had nobody in front of him or was a half a car width across, no problem. But you'll see that Gary isn't on the brakes yet, but he's further away from Connor than Rich is to Gary. So Bob has just been caught out here a little bit by Rich, doing absolutely nothing wrong. Rich just making sure he doesn't hit the car ahead. Bob unfortunately taps the back of Rich. Rich then tags the back of Gary, and Gary ends up off. And when we look at it in full speed, you'll see it does happen very, very quick. So we look for the overlap of the cars here, and Bob will take what appears to be evasive. Just there, he's off track, should have backed off. Now he's back under control. There's a little bit of a touch, and it all happens so quickly. But one of the things that we we looked at as stewards was there's two phases of the incident. Is there a separation? Does one cause the other? And the answer for us was no, but we understand it happens very quickly, and Bob may have felt that they were connected. But overall, we felt that the result of the incident there should have been Bob saying, "Ah shit, sorry Rich, I've hit the back of you," and it's ended up with Gary off and waiting. That's what we feel the outcome should have been. If Rich had have braked way too early, or done a bit of brake checking or whatever it may be, then fair enough, Bob would be able to say, well, he braked at a point that is completely unfair and unexpected. Like if someone hits the brakes halfway down a straight, then that's not right. But in that instance, Rich is braking at a perfectly reasonable point on the track, given that he's got cars ahead of him, and that's where the stewards have said that for Bob, he really should have been on the brakes at a similar point to Rich, if not just before, because he's got cars ahead of him, or further over to the right where there was a bit of space ahead of him if he wanted to attempt the overtake. So it's very unlucky. It's a minor bit of contact, but it does result in Gary, completely innocent, well, on this occasion maybe, ending up in the gravel. Okay, let's crack on, shall we? Right, okay, what that does mean, Ray, is that on the video that we're watching, you can now advance to 4 minutes and 46 seconds. And then what we can do here is I'm going to play the 4:46. I'm going to treat this kind of not like we've been doing the reports, but basically I'm going to announce it and then we're going to stop before we show the footage, because I want us to have a conversation before we go on to the footage. Otherwise, I will just be talking about what we're seeing and then having to explain more afterwards, whereas I'd rather explain some things and then be able to show the examples to back it up. Okay, now before we do that, I just want to send out my condolences to Shaquille O'Neal. You know who he is?
Something to do. Is that not the NBA?
Yeah, Shaquille O'Neal, the absolute beast of a human. A lovely bloke, the wonderful man.
Did he not make trainers to sell cheaper for people to afford them?
Oh yeah. He
I know.
Yeah, once he'd found out that like people weren't able to buy trainers for like $20 or something.
Adidas contract or something
Yeah.
was in there, wasn't it?
Yeah. He also he wanted security for his house, like camera security, and he was quoted a ridiculous amount of money for security. And he
he invested in
Ring.
Ring, yeah.
Before they were big, because he loved what they supplied, and so he invested in them. But yeah, I just want to sort of send out my condolences though, because unfortunately for the big man, he's never been able to end messages with "Love Shaq" because the B-52s ruined that for him.
You're an asshole. I thought somebody died within his family.
I know. Oh, right, so should we move on?
Do you think he goes into the bedroom singing that to his wife?
Probably.
Oh, shit.
Shaq, baby, love Shaq. Have you seen the size of his bed?
No.
It's about 30 foot wide and about 15 foot long.
Jesus Christ.
It's massive. Yeah. Also, when he had his house built, he ended up having a house built because he got fed up of having to duck under doors. Yeah. But for anyone that doesn't know, Shaquille O'Neal is, do some research on him. The guy is an absolute legend. I mean, I was listening to one story that he was asked about where he says, I've heard a story about when you go for dinner and you tip the waiter or a waitress. So I've heard an interesting story. He goes, yeah, well, basically I ask them how much they want. So what do you mean? So, well, I ask if they've done a good job and I think they've deserved it. I ask them how much they want, and what they ask for is what I give them.
So what if they say nothing?
I don't think he'd give them nothing. There's no way you'd do that. But he said there was one, says the lady said $3,000, and he's like, okay. And it basically paid her rent for the next 2 months. So, and she was about to be evicted. So yeah, so there we go. Okay, so on to the next one in 3, 2, 1, let's go. Gee whiz, strong track limits rules for next season. What does that mean? Okay, so we've had a request from the Blues of Richard about...
it means you can't overtake in the formation lap.
Yes, that's exactly what it means, Rich. You know. Excuse me. To be fair, that it is a good question, because... I mean, we would have had to have expanded on the details anyway, but it is a good question. Okay, so reason why I wanted to have a conversation here, Ray, is because there's a lot of things that kind of need covering here. So I'm going to be asking you a few questions, as with you being an admin. But don't worry, it's not going to go too in depth. So first off, why are we trying the strong rules, in-game penalty rules for track limits?
Because we were all pissed one night and decided, yeah, let's put that on and see how that goes.
Exactly. There we go. And also what we did, we tried it on week, and we found that you could cut a big chunk of a corner and not get much of a penalty. So we went with the strong because it's much more of a penalty. Okay, I'm trying to think if I had other questions now. My mind's gone blank. Okay.
Why did we do it? Well, we try every season. We try and implement different things, and we see things that are going good within, like lobbies or whatnot, or when we're testing things, and maybe some things that we want to test out on GT7 when we move over there. So, and then there's times of those certain corners you can cut when nobody's around you and gain advantage.
Oh, do you mean like someone at Spa?
I don't know what you're talking about.
Alright, okay.
So I think just throwing something in there, see how it goes. As we do, we're Dynamic GT League for a racing reason, reason, and we're going to try all different things. We're not just going to keep it to the same thing. We're going to keep changing things. We're going to change it up, and it keeps everybody on their wits every season.
Mm-hmm. Okay, could it also be because there have been a couple of races recently at some tracks where perhaps track limits did become a bit of an issue? Like people were like going off track a bit too much?
There is that as well, and it's that is as well. The main one's going to be Red Bull Ring, exit of turn 1.
Well, exit turn 1, the last two corners.
Mm-hmm. Sorry, yeah.
Yeah, who's having a drink?
Yeah.
But not only that, Spa, top of the hill. I mean, I'm going to get on to some examples of what difference the rule will mean. But what we do need to mention is a couple of things, right? With the strong...
Kinda get where you're going with this.
I hope so. Okay, with the strong penalty rules on, which is on in the game, it means that the game will issue penalties when people go off the track. However, there may be times when people go off the track in a place you go off track where you got a penalty and they don't. Now, there may be other factors. It could be speed, it could be time lost, it could be many different things. So if you see if you get a penalty on a corner and you see somebody else doesn't, there must have been another factor as to why they didn't get the penalty. So just to quickly mention that. Secondly, yes, the strong penalty rules is on, but us as admins aren't necessarily going to be looking at implementing additional penalties unless we desperately have to. And that is where the normal DGT League exceeding track limit rules are still in play. Now, the current DGT track limits rules are that curbs are classed as part of the track. So you can have two wheels on the curb, as we showed on a previous video, a previous G-Spot, someone heading up to a corner and they were beyond the white line, but they had two wheels on the curb. That's fine. It was Art Pal, yeah. So, so that is within our rules. Also, if there is a sausage curb, you could straddle said sausage curb. That's the rules. You're okay there. So, Red Bull Ring, exit of turn 1, that yellow sausage curb, you could straddle that, and as far as our rules are concerned, that's okay. Now, when you combine our rules and the in-game strong penalties, obviously there's going to be a conflict of interest. So this is how DGT is treating this. The strong penalty rules are in full effect, and to back them up is the DGT rules. So if somebody happens to go over the white line, let me.
I think you need to reword that.
I was going to say, let me just rewind a moment. Okay, with the strong penalty rules, the edge of the track is the white line. The curbs are not classed as part of the track. So if you go all four wheels over the white line, you are at risk of getting a penalty. Okay. Now this is where the DGT rules come into play, in that if you are over the white line but still have two wheels on the track, and the game does not give you the two wheels on the curb, if the game does not give you a penalty, you are not at risk of getting a penalty from DGT League. However, if you are over the white line, not on a curb, and the game doesn't give you a penalty, you would be at risk of being exceeding track limits. Do I need to reword that again? I mean, I could try. Don't be a tool. But no, so basically, go on.
Yeah. Struck track limits, what we've seen is it kind of the white line, you've got to have two wheels within the white line of the track.
Mm-hmm.
If you exceed them and you don't get a penalty, then fair enough.
As long as you've still got wheels on the curb, fair enough.
Yeah, as long as you've got still wheels on the curb. But if you get a penalty, then you get a penalty.
Exactly.
We're going to see how that goes.
Yeah. Now, for anyone that thinks, well, go on.
We have been testing it. There's been a track where we've been testing it, and it's like, you're getting a penalty. No, not got a penalty. You're getting a penalty. You're not getting a penalty. But there's so many factors the game is taking into account. So
yes,
it's what you want to risk.
Yes. Yeah, so I mean, that's why I mentioned that before, because some people may think, well, that's a glitch. If I'm getting a penalty and he's not, that's a glitch. Well, actually, there could definitely be other factors. Now, for some people that may think, well, where's the point of having the DGT rule to back things up? Well, it is basically there to stop people. If we didn't have our rule in place anyway, and we just said, right, the in-game penalties will deal with everything regarding track limits, well, what happens if it doesn't penalise somebody for exceeding track limits when it really should, when they have gone off track where there isn't a curb? So it's to protect the league and the integrity of the twisted rules. So yeah. Yeah. So what we're going to do now is I'm going to actually show some examples of what currently is okay within DGT League, but you would probably get a penalty for in the next championship because of the strong penalty rules. So, are you ready to have a look at some footage?
Yes.
Okay, let's get ready in 3, 2, 1, let's go. Okay, so we're actually going to look at Rich Blues here at Red Bull Ring in the final two corners, and you're going to see him just... that's fine, according to our rules at the moment. So, with this, Rich has gone through this corner, fine. 2 wheels on the curb, fine. in our current rules. However, if he does this in the next championship, yes, he's got 2 wheels on the curb, but he is 2 wheels or all 4 wheels beyond the white line. He is at risk of getting a penalty. If he gets a penalty, he has to serve the penalty. If he gets no penalty, he's okay. This one, that happened quick. SRI way over the curb. He's at risk of a penalty, and the second part was beyond the white line, risk of a penalty. So the first one should be a penalty anyway. Now here, this is one where in our current DGT rules, he's okay to do this. Under the strong penalty, he could get a penalty for this. However, if he does that and doesn't get a penalty, he's okay. Monza, straddle the sausage. At the moment, that's fine. However, under the strong penalty rules...
Are you there?
Yeah, I'm talking continuously. However...
I can't hear it.
Alright. Under the strong penalty rules, being in that position, beyond the white line, could result in a penalty. And how big is that sausage? So, yeah, I know that's kind of flashed through pretty quickly, but they're examples of what is okay in DGT League at the moment. And obviously there was the one where SRI at Red Bull Ring, penultimate corner, he went beyond the curb. So even in the next championship, that's exceeding track limits. Okay, because he's beyond the white line, but he's also beyond the curb. So if he doesn't get a penalty from the game, he could still be at risk of being told he's a naughty boy because he's not even stayed on the curb. The other examples are situations where people using the curb, which is absolutely fine now, but doing that next season, you could get a penalty. So, the white line is the edge of the track. Keep 2 wheels within the white line. If you go over the white line, you could get penalties. Now, when it comes to serving penalties, actually, before we get on to serving penalties, is there anything you want to add to what we've just talked about and seen there, Ray?
I just want to go back to that if somebody doesn't get a penalty, it's not a glitch, it's all the different factors in there, so
yeah.
Just keep that in your mind as well.
Yes.
And maybe if you look over at the end of the race and see why they never got a penalty, then
it may make sense.
Well, it should make sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because the amount of testing we've done on it and whatnot, we're pushing boundaries, we're testing everything.
Yeah. I mean, we tested it so much that SRI or Ray got a penalty of about 1 minute 40 seconds in a 3-lap race. So, yeah.
Yeah, and then he didn't get a penalty where other people were getting a penalty.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just the way he was able to go through that.
Yeah.
The few corners, it wasn't. Was it he was going slower? We don't know. We never kind of looked back on it. We were just testing it out and seeing what was going on.
Yeah. I mean, I know one of the reasons why we're trying it is because if it is something that we could, incorporate going forward and it works well on GT7, then great. But for anything new that we may want to incorporate in future seasons, at some point we have to give it a good old try. And that's exactly what we're going to do. Okay, so...
if we don't feel it's for us, we'll use it again.
Exactly. Oh, yeah, exactly.
For testing, especially GT7. We're going to be testing on GT7, so if it's not for us on GT7, we won't
be using
use it on Yeah, and if it's with all the penalties, we'll go all through the penalties on GT7 before we actually imply them within the league.
Exactly. Even things like checking whether the flags work differently to how they do on GT Sport. Okay, when it comes to serving penalties, it's a bit unusual, and I can honestly say I haven't 100% worked it out yet. On GT7, it's dead easy. There's a penalty zone, and once you enter it, your car gets slowed down till you serve your penalty. And like literally, if you get, you could get a penalty every lap and serve a penalty every lap. On GT Sport, it doesn't work like that. Basically, if you get a penalty, then you have to reduce that penalty by going slow. I haven't worked out exactly the best way to go slow to reduce it at the moment, but that's something that we're all going to have to kind of look at. So whether it be
there is a few ideas out there of lifting cost, take your corners a wee bit more slower, or just
bang the anchors on.
Bang the anchors on, or if you're on a long straight, slow it down until you see it coming down.
Yeah.
You are going to be vulnerable, but
you're going to lose time. There's no doubt about it.
If you don't lose the time, you're going to get it penalised at the end of the race.
Yeah. Well, we'll get on to that in a moment, because...
I'll forget.
Yeah. Because what I wanted to mention was, when you get the penalty, it pops up in the middle of the screen. It tells you how much time you need to lose. And once you are slowing down, and so far, not accelerating out of a corner seems to do it a bit. Definitely slowing down on a straight does it. Sometimes if you're crashing, it reduces it. Now, when you are reducing your time penalty, it ghosts you. Now, we're not massive fans of how that may look, but it is what it is. What I would say with that is, if you see somebody ghosting because they're getting rid of their penalty, don't just try and drive through them, because if they suddenly unghost and you smash them, that's going to be on you. So yeah, be very, very careful of that. Now, when it gets to, as Ray was mentioning, if you have not got rid of your penalties by the end, by the end of the race, then the penalty amount will be rounded up to the nearest second and applied to your race finishing time, which means you could potentially lose positions if you just ignored the fact you got penalties and just drove to the end. However, there's another surprise feature, isn't there, Ray?
What's that?
Well, when you get a penalty, what happens if you get another one?
Accumulates.
What? So if I've got a penalty and I haven't reduced its time, what happens with the next one?
Gets added on.
And what if I get another one?
Added on.
Does it just add on at the same rate?
No, I think it adds on more time because you're not fucking learning.
Exactly. It multiplies exponentially. So if you get a 1 second penalty and you don't get rid of it, you get another penalty, good chance you're getting 2 seconds added on, 4 seconds added on, 8 seconds added on. So if you do not get rid of your penalties, you will very quickly accumulate a larger penalty amount. And then what happens, Ray, if you get to a certain point that we don't know exactly what that point is, but when you get to a certain amount of penalties, what happens?
I don't know.
Have you forgotten this bit? where it
DNF?
no, where it just keeps going up even if you're driving down a straight. So if you don't get rid of your penalties, it will literally just keep adding time on while you're driving along. So yeah, get rid of your penalties. Now, some people may wonder again.
I think everybody's like, why the fuck are you doing this?
Yeah, well, that's exactly what I was about to say, about to get to again. Well, why the bloody hell would you do this? Well, okay, as we've said, there's a few, we like trying different things, but also, I know I used to be very hardcore on the track limits, and other people are. And track limits is something that has been talked about a lot, or brought up a few times by drivers. And ideally, we would love it that the edge of the track is the white line. But what we always said on GT was, well, you know what, we don't want to be policing it strongly. Let's be lenient. Let's allow people to use curbs. Let's use
sausage.
Yeah, sausage. Let's be more educational rather than slamming. And give a lot of benefit of the doubt when it comes to track limits, because we've been down that road, or don't want to go down that road. But what we are interested in is, as you've said a few times, Ray, the drivers have been improving, and we see this as potentially another level of improvement, where drivers can't just think, oh, well, I'll go flat out through Eau Rouge and up over the top of the hill, because it doesn't matter if I cut the corner a bit. Well, it does, and it will, because you could get a penalty for it. So it's part of it is in the aim to just... now I'm saying it sounds a bit fucking evil, but just to bring those reins in a little bit of, we've let people have free rein near enough, so let's bring it in onto the racetrack, because it'll make for better racing, it'll look better, and also, I mean, it might fail epically, but there's only one way we'll find out, and that's to try it.
If we don't try it, we won't know.
Exactly. I mean, we tried it with the Arc race as a one-off, which, I mean, we didn't really have any bad feedback from that, but it's very difficult to take an advanced decision on something like that on a one-off test. That's why we've tested it a few times, and we want to put it through its paces, which is also why every one of the tracks that has been picked for the next championship is a track that has corners where we have previously had said you can use the sausage curbs, you can use the curbs. So we have kind of made it so that we're testing the tracks as well as the rules, as well as trying to help the drivers hone their skills.
And also the drivers that did use the curbs are going to have to learn not to use the curbs.
Absolutely.
So,
I mean, I'm one of them. I mean, this is the thing. You look back at any of my races at Monza or Red Bull Ring, I use the curbs. And I'll use the...
Not as much as me.
Well, no, that is true. I didn't use them on the entry like you did, but I wouldn't there, because I just find, it's my choice. But I am someone, so at Monza, I mean, if you think back, right, okay, so the unless you were there at the time, people wouldn't know this. I think it was at the practice race recently at the Red Bull Ring. Before we actually did one of the practice races, I asked people to come and view where I position my car at turn 1 to see if they thought I would be classed as cutting the corner, because I wasn't sure and I couldn't get a good view from my car. So I wanted other people to tell me whether I would be exceeding track limits or not. Now, with the new rule coming on, I'm one of the people that is going to have to go, okay, I can't use that much curb because I am beyond the white line. It's, like I said, it's the same with Red Bull, Monza, Le Mans, because like with Le Mans, where the chicanes on the long straights, there's some white lines on the exit parts of the chicanes where you go over them, you get a penalty. Previously, I didn't know about that when we tested that one, so I was like, oh shit, okay, so yes, I've been quick at this track, but actually, have I been exceeding track limits and I didn't know? So if it's to rein me in a bit as well, it's not like I can say, well, it's to stop people cutting corners or doing things that they shouldn't, blah, blah, blah. Well, I'm part of that group.
Yeah. That's why you should join in a Monday practice, guys, because you'll know it before it happens.
Absolutely. Yes. 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 Now, one thing I'm not going to do is go driving around showing people where you get fucking penalties and don't. It'll take forever.
Has track's been
confirmed? Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, the track list has been confirmed and been sent out, I believe.
Has it?
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, SGP told us, he says, oh, I messaged all the drivers, but I did it from my personal account by mistake.
I got them.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
You had a lot going on, so it's all right. I think it was yesterday, did it? But yeah, now, if we haven't been clear enough or people have more questions, feel free to ask. Yeah, we have no issues with trying to clarify things, which, once again, I probably shouldn't have done while having a beer, but there you go. Right, anything else you want to add, Ray?
No, just looking at the track to see which ones are going to be the more prominent ones. I got a rough idea.
Yeah.
But I don't have anything else to that.
You know what? I've got one more thing to add, right?
Yeah.
Which is, okay, so this is sort of the example that's going through my mind, like, of how I would like people to approach this concept. So I'm going to use Spa as an example. Okay, so we go round turn 1 at Spa. We go down the hill, we go up Eau Rouge and over the crest of the hill. You got 2 wheels on the curb and you get a penalty. Oh, for fuck's sake. So you go round, you get rid of your penalty, you come round to Eau Rouge, you do exactly the same thing. Oh, for fuck's sake, I got a penalty. You get rid of it, you go round, you do the same thing again. Oh, for fuck's sake, I got a penalty. Really, by that point, you should be going...
You became a lady.
What? What?
You became a lady.
Did I? How?
Once, twice.
3 times.
3 times.
Okay, no.
I fucking got you, finally.
Right, okay. So yeah, by the time you've done it that many times, you should be realising, okay, I'm going too fast here, or I need to be over there. And that's where it's bringing in the educating the drivers of going, okay, I'm getting a penalty because my car is ending up in the wrong place.
Yeah, just make sure one lip's over the one side of the line and the other lip's over the other side.
Whatever you do, don't blow. Right. Okay. Right. Yeah, I think on that bombshell. You know what? Today, right, I thought, okay, I've not got a lot of time. Should I actually look at finding some jokes to get Ray with? I thought, no, you know what? Today I won't bother. Now, I found 2 that I'd already got and I've used them, but I didn't go finding any others, and there you are. 3 times a lady. Yeah, fucker. Right, I think we're done.
Right. Keep the lips and tyres in place, guys.
Absolutely. Have a good one, everybody. Thanks for listening, watching. You know what to do. Like, subscribe, notifications, share, and join us on race day for all of the action. Bye.